Okay, so here's a quick update on the gearbox situation on my Matchless Model X. Now, as you may remember, I had the primary chain snap, wrapped itself, tangled with the dynamo chain. They both snapped, wrapped themselves around the clutch basket, which obviously stopped abruptly. And I thought I just needed new chains, but when I investigated, the actual gearbox had fractured, had big cracks in it, obviously caused by this the primary chain snapping. I think that maybe the case was cracked already, maybe had a hairline crack already, I don't know, but whatever the case, it had a bad crack in it, and hopefully I'll insert a little picture of it now. We can see the full extent of the crack, even though it's sort of mainly cracked, up to the B, but obviously the hairline crack continues higher up. Then it opens out down by the mounting, and then if you look inside the mounting, it carries on. Well, obviously it carries on down the outside of the mounting, which isn't so bad because that's just on the outside, but it carries on down the inside of the mounting. And if we look inside, if we look at the bottom there, I'll try and get the camera in, I don't know if I can, then that's like the inside of the mounting, and you can see the crack goes all the way along. So basically the crack in the mounting goes all the way along to the end here. So like inside this, this sort of, this crack here goes all the way along inside the mounting, basically, to the end inside. Okay, the result of that was that they're very, very hard to come by, new gearbox. Well, obviously they're rarer than hen's teeth. So my first instinct was to try and get the old gearbox welded up, and I was worried that it might distort under welding, but it turns out that wasn't the problem at all. The problem transpired to be that the actual gearbox would not weld, the actual metal wouldn't weld. I took the gearbox to a specialist welder called Badfoot Customs. He's absolutely brilliant, a wizard of a guy with any kind of metal. And he was TIG welding it, and it just wouldn't weld. Every time he welded it, as it cooled down, it cracked. And again, hopefully there will be, I'll insert a picture of that here in the video. And he tried everything. He tried using different welding rods. He tried magnesium rods. But he worked out that there was some problem, something in the metal that was, he could, the way the metal spat and so on as he tried to weld it, he worked out there was imperfections in there, but he didn't know what. But he tried everything and it just wouldn't weld. So what we did then was, he thought there was a possibility that the gearbox might weld if it was welded with gas. So I then took it to Andy, is it? Oh, excuse me if I got your name wrong. I think it's Andy. Who's another great guy, and he was a wizard with gas welding. And but again, he tried everything again, and it just wouldn't weld. Again, it just kept cracking. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a picture. Shall I explain why I don't have a picture of that? So in the end, he took it to a friend of his who's a metallurgist, and he identified that what it was, there was an awful lot of zinc. There's a high proportion of zinc in the alloy, and it was that zinc that was preventing the gearbox from welding the metal, and that was the problem. It just wouldn't weld. Too higher zinc concentration. So I went. What happened was I went to pick up the gearbox from him and took it straight up with me to see Seb, who's a wonderful chap, and he has got a collection of old gearboxes, and believed that he might have a gearbox that would fit mine, because it turns out that when I investigated, the gearbox is basically as a one-off for the Model X. Berman made hundreds of gearboxes for Ariels and Vincent's, I think, is it, and Ariel, still I say Ariel, can't remember, and Panthers, I think, and all sorts of bikes. But this particular gearbox for Model X is unique for Model X. So, and no one had one. Nobody had one at all. So anyway, in the end, Seb managed to find a gearbox. And I'm sorry I haven't got pictures of my gearbox, but this is the gearbox that Seb was able to supply me. Now, the thing is that it is a Model X gearbox, but it is the earlier gearbox. So it's different to my gearbox. So I couldn't just buy the shell, because the whole gearbox is different. My bike is about a 38. And the gearbox that was on that, I say about because it's a Bitzer bike. The frames are 37. We think the engines are 40, and so on. And we thought the gearbox was 38. Now in 38, that's when they changed the gearbox to the later type. And this is an early 38 gearbox, and my old one was a late 38. But the thing is, the whole gearbox is different. And so I couldn't just buy the shell, I had to buy the inner casing and the outer casing, because it's all totally different. The good news is that the gears themselves will fit in, the gears didn't change. So they will fit in this new gearbox, which is actually older than the original gearbox. So I've got this is the shell, which I've just taken it for some blast cleaning. And then I've just cleaned it up, so we'll start rebuilding that, putting the gears and that in soon. Then we've got the sort of inner casing here, and that will go on there. And then we've got the outer casing, and that will go on there. But it is different. The main visual difference is that this has got the clutch, the clutch actuating mechanism. The lever that pulls the clutch in is actually on the outside of the gearbox. But on mine, this lever is the later model is hidden inside the gearbox. So, but it is a genuine Model X gearbox, and since mine's a Model X and it's a Bitzer, I'm just eternally grateful to Seb, because no one had one. I couldn't find one anywhere. I tried Germany. I tried, I've tried, eBay and that, whatever. It's a nightmare, because there are so many Berman gearboxes, but they just wouldn't fit my bike, particularly these mountings. And of course, there's like a hollow bit where the mounting is. So it's very difficult to just sort of adjust them, and you start cutting them away or whatever to put spacers in, then the whole thing gets very complicated. So I don't know what I'd have done. I'd probably have had to put in some kind of modern gearbox, and it would have looked really bad. Anyway, and so Seb has also given me various different parts, enabling me to rebuild the gearbox. Oh yeah, another thing is, unfortunately, the Speedo drive, this long channel here, this is where the Speedo drive came out of the gearbox on these earlier models, whereas on my bike, the Speedo drive is off the front wheel. Okay, so going to have to sort of block that off, because I haven't got the innards, the actual mechanism for the Speedo drive. So I'll probably just take this out and blank it off, and I've got like a plug for the bottom. So that's another difference. And then I've got to have a different kickstart ratchet and things like that. But hopefully Seb has been able to give me all the parts that I need to, to build this gearbox. So mainly my parts, but with a few different little bits where required. So obviously we'll when I start rebuilding it, I'm just waiting to get a few bits, but I'll start rebuilding this fairly soon. I've just got to get a new main bearing for the back. Also, things like this doesn't have an oil seal on the, and you can't put one in. It's a seal bearing, and that's what stops the grease stroke oil coming out. There is no oil seal, and you can't put one in. There's little things like that that are different, and but it's great. Got a, because just couldn't get one. They're just not, they're just not made, not available, because as far as we know, the gearbox is unique to the Model X. It only seems to fit, only made for this model. So absolute hen's teeth. Okay, so I'll start rebuilding that fairly soon. When I've got the main bearing, I think that's what I'm waiting for. And just then, by the by, I've had another chat with someone else, Jeff, is it? And we were chatting about gearboxes and that. And he said, what you can do is, do you want to raise the gearing? I've been trying to get a bigger clutch chain wheel, but a smaller clutch chain wheel to raise the gearing. That's proven very difficult. So Jeff said one thing I can do is to actually, this is the engine sprocket, the dynamo sprocket and primary chain sprocket, is to actually machine this sprocket off and then drill out. This is a bigger sprocket. I think this is 25, is it? And this is 27. Yeah, I think the original was a 25 and this is a 27. So I'm going to fit a bigger engine drive sprocket, this one. So we'll machine this one off, then we'll machine a big hole in the middle of that one, the same size as that, heat shrink it on, and then weld it on to get, because obviously you can't get the whole sprocket, is unobtainable, but just a single one, and we'll try and put that on there. The downside is, I think that this is, because it's bigger, it won't actually fit. Wait for it. It won't fit in the primary chain case. I think it will just catch. So I'll have to have the primary chain case just enlarged very slightly, so it doesn't catch on the chain case. It's nothing's ever straightforward, is it? But at least I'm trying to get some positive out of this. And if I do manage to increase the, get the gears higher, then that will be a result, because it's still under, you can really feel it's under geared, and I can't get other sprockets, and I'm struggling for ways. So like this rear sprocket is totally unobtainable. The engine sprocket's unobtainable. I've already got the biggest gearbox sprocket that is available. I think it's a 19 tooth, and which has helped, but I could do with going up again. So we'll try with that, see how we get on. Right, anyway, that's the update. Oh, and now the reason I haven't got photos of my gearbox is because I part exchanged the shell, the inner and the outer, with Seb. He's got them, because ultimately I suppose someone could, because they're so unique, someone could cast. You could cast if you were absolutely stuck, but it would have cost probably thousands of pounds. I don't know, to get it done. So it wasn't really a possibility in our case, but that's why I can't show you the pictures of it, because it's now with Seb. Because fair enough, he said you can buy this one, but obviously unique. I want your old one. Yeah, fair enough. But it's still got the big cracks in it. My old one. They tried everything, but wouldn't work. Right. Anyway, there we are. I'll when I start rebuilding the gearbox, then I'll start the next do the next video of the actual gearbox building, and then getting it back in the bike. And also I'll keep you updated as to how this goes. I'm just a bit worried, because if it doesn't work, then then I can't buy another engine sprocket. So, I hope it does work. Right. Anyway, there we are. At least we have a gearbox. Hurrah. Phew. There was a time when I honestly thought I weren't going to get one. I was, I just can't get one from anywhere for any money. So, I'm just really happy to at least have a gearbox. Hurrah.